Hey, what's up, everyone? Great to see you again here at Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Ayin Tes of Masechta Shabbos. Friends, I hope you guys came ready to focus. Hope you came ready to focus, You know what I mean? So, overview before we begin. The Daf kind of starts off. It jumps right into things, right? You really got to focus at the beginning over here. We're talking about what happens when you take out on Shabbos a loan document. Mostly, we're concerned about what happens when it's already been paid. Are you chayav or patur for that? And then, of course, we get back into minimum sizes of things. We're sort of continuing on our thrilling kind of theme of the past parak or two. And then finally, we talk about what materials do you write tefillin and mezuzahs on. Sounds interesting, right? Wait till you get there. Alrighty, here we go. So let's start on Daf Ayin Ches. What's going on here? It's not a good time for Bobo to make balaganim. I gotta focus. Okay, Ayin Ches Amud Beis. About like 10 lines before the end of the page. Cool. Tana Rabbanan, the rabbis taught. Hamotzi shtarchov ad shelo paro chayav. Okay, so that's the easy part. Somebody who takes out on Shabbos. Now, let me actually give you a little bit of a kind of structure for the next little things. So basically, we are going to have this machlokas between the Tanakama and Rabbi Yehuda. Okay? And we are going to give 4 nafkaminas between the Tanakama and Rabbi Yehuda. Now, the first 3 are going to be from the perspective of the lender, right? We're talking about the lender taking out this document on Shabbos. The 4th opinion is going to be the borrower taking out the document on Shabbos. Now, also just some terminology. So, malveh means lender, loveh means borrower. Okay, you got that? Malveh means lender, loveh means borrower. Now, so Tana Rabbanan Motzi shtarchov. So let's assume for now it is the lender, right? So if a lender takes out a document, what kind of document are we talking about? We're talking about the following document. Ruvain borrowed $100 from Shimon. Okay, so when that happens, Ruvain, right, who's the loveh, who's the borrower, so he writes down on a document, I, Ruvain, borrowed $100 from Shimon, and he gives this document to Shimon, and, when the time comes to pay it back, so Shimon can go to court, theoretically, if he needs to, and prove that he is owed these $100, okay? So the question is Shimon, the malveh, the lender, is he allowed to go out to Rosh Hashanah with this fancy document that he can use to get his $100? So ad shelo paro chayav. Okay, so if the loan has not yet been paid back, well then this document bears significance, holds significance. He can use this document, it's still valid, and he can use it to get back his $100 from Reuven. So everyone agrees that if the loan has not yet been paid back, well then this document is significant, is chashuv, and if the malveh goes out to Rishus Harabim with it, so he is going to be chayav. However, mishipirao patur. However, once the loan has already been paid back, well then this document is essentially useless, right? What are you going to do with it? It's already been paid back. So therefore it's not significant. You're going to be patur. Whereas Rabbi Yehuda Omer af mishipro chayav mipnei shetzarich lo. Whereas Rabbi Yehuda says no. Even once the loan has been paid back, this document still has relevance, still has significance, and the lender is going to be chayav if he takes it out to Rishus Harabim. Okay. Now the question is, why does the lender still have this document after it's already been paid back? It's a good question, right? Because generally speaking, when Reuven would pay back Shimon, so Shimon would give him back the document And then, we'll see about different options about what Reuven can then do with it. Should he destroy it? Can he hold on to it? Things like that. But in any event, once it's already been paid back, if the malveh, if the lender still has this document, so then the Tanna Kama says he would be potter for taking it out to Rosh Hashanah because it doesn't really have significance anymore. Whereas Rabbi Yehuda says it would be chayiv because it does have significance. Now the Gemara wants to know, my benayu, what's the nafkamina between Tanna Kama and Rabbi Yehuda? How come the Tanna Kama says that the malva would be potter when he takes out this paid back loan document to Rosh Hashanah, and Rabbi Yehuda says he would be chayiv? So Amar Rav Yosef, also lishos shtar parua ika benayu. So Rav Yosef says that the nafkamina between the Tanna Kama and Rabbi Yehuda is whether or not you are allowed to hold on to a document that has already been paid back. Okay? Once Reuven has already paid back Shimon the $100, is Shimon allowed to hold on to this document? Right, Rashi points out on the first wide line of Rashi, he quotes a pasuk in Eov that says, Al tashken be'olecha avla, do not keep in your house anything crooked. And this document can be considered crooked in that if he holds on to it, maybe he'll take it and try to bring it back to court one time and try to make, to double dip, to make Reuven pay again. Meaning, once this loan has been paid back, this document should be destroyed. Okay? We don't want Shimon, the malveh, holding on to it because we don't want to risk any chance of him trying to claim the $100 from Reuven a second time. We also don't want even Reuven, the loveh, the borrower, to hold on to this document once he's paid back the loan because, we don't want it to end up back in Shimon's hands. So, therefore, the question is, what do you hold regarding this concept of asur lashos shtar parua, right? So Rabbanan sabe asur lashos shtar parua. So the Rabbanan who say that the malva would be potter for going out to Rosh Hashanah with this paid back document because it's meaningless. So they would say, asur lashos shtar parua. You're not allowed to hold on to a shtar parua. You must destroy it. It has no use in, to being in existence. And therefore, if you take out this insignificant document, which really needs to be destroyed, so you are going to be potter for that on Shabbos. Whereas Rabbi Yehuda savar mutar lashos shtar parua. Whereas Rabbi Yehuda says, no, you're allowed to hold on to a shtar parua if you want to. And therefore, the malveh, the lender, if he wants, he can hold on to the shtar, right? He says, lachroch al pitzluchiso. Right? So if he wants to, I don't know, he can wrap up some kind of flask that he has. He basically use this shtar as scrap paper. And if that's the case, well, according to Rabbi Yehuda, he can hold on to this shtar, right, for like scrap paper. And he has a need for it. He has use for it. This shtar has a reason to exist. It has meaning. And therefore, if the malveh goes out with it on Shabbos, he is going to be chayiv for that. Abaye Amar. So Abaye says, I hope I didn't just say Abaye for the previous thing, because that was Rav Yosef, okay? Now Abaye says, D'chuli Amar asur lashos shtar parua, okay? Abaye says, no. Both the Tanna Kama and Rabbi Yehuda hold that it's forbidden to hold on to a document that has already been paid, a loan document that's already been paid. Once Reuven pays back that document, pays back that loan, this document that says that Reuven owes Shimon $100, destroy it. Get rid of it. It has no reason to exist. However, here, we're talking about a document, a loan that has not yet been paid back, or at least we're trying to figure out what's going on with this loan. Okay? What if we're talking about, so remember, Reuven borrows $100 from Shimon, okay? Reuven then writes to Shimon a document saying, I owe you $100. Now, what happens if Reuven, who wrote the shtar, admits that he wrote the shtar, but he won't admit that he still needs to pay back the money, right? He's not willing to say that it's still valid that he still needs to pay it. So the question is over there's a concept of hapesha asar hu hapesha hitir, right? The mouth who made it asar upon himself is also the same mouth that's making it mutter upon himself. Meaning, if Ruvain is willing to say, yeah, I wrote this document, and because of that we're going to hold him accountable to the document, well, we should also then be able to trust him and, also take his word when he says that he's already paid it back, right? And therefore, basically, we're in a bind over here, because on one hand we have this document, but we have no way to establish its validity because we have this guy Ruvain who's admitting that he wrote it, but if we're willing to trust him on that, but we also have to trust him on what he said, that he already paid it back. So if that's the case, well then the only way to prove the validity of this document is to find other witnesses who can attest to the signatures and attest that this is a valid document, in which case we're going on their testimony that it's a good document, and that's what and that'll make the document valid. But in the meantime, until we get other parties, other witnesses to prove anything, this document is essentially irrelevant, is not valid, right? And the fact that Ruvain says that he wrote this document is not enough because he's also saying that he paid it back. So Abaye says, right, right? Here the machlokas between the Tanakama and Rabbi Yehuda is when somebody admits, in this case Ruvain, when he admits that he wrote the document, okay, do we also need him to admit that he hasn't yet paid it back in order for it to be valid? Or if he's, not willing to say that, right, if he's going to argue that he's already paid it back, does it make the document basically useless? So Tanakama savar, mod b'shtar sheksavo tzarich l'kaimo. So the Tanakama says that if Reuven admits that he wrote the document, he will also have to admit that it's still valid, that it still needs to be paid back. And if he's not willing to do this, well then the document as it stands is basically useless. And therefore, if the Malvet takes out this document, this useless document that he can't use to collect anything because Reuven is not willing to validate it, so you're going to be patur for taking that out. Whereas Rabbi Yehuda savar moda b'shtar savo ein tzarich l'kaimo. Whereas Rabbi Yehuda holds that no, once Reuven admits that he wrote the shtar, he doesn't need to also admit that it's still valid, that it needs to be paid back. Once he admits that he wrote the shtar, that's enough to say that it's a valid shtar, and Shimon, our Malvet, would be able to collect using that shtar, and therefore it's a valid shtar, and that's why if you take it out to Rosh Hashanah, you would be chayiv according to Rabbi Yehuda. Umay ad shelo pera'o mishe pera'o. So now how do we understand this brisa, right? That it says, right, to go back to the beginning of our Gemara today, Tanar Abanan, hamotzi shtar chov ad shelo pera'o chayiv mishe pera'o pater. When it says that when it hasn't yet been paid back, right, it's significant and it's chayiv. Once it's been paid back, it's pater, right? And Rabbi Yehuda says chayiv. So it says at the top of Ayin Tesmud Aleph, ad sheyomer love paraiti velo paraiti, right? Meaning, what it means, that when it says that once it's been paid back, then you're pater, it means when the love, the borrower, Reuven, when he says, I already paid it back, i.e., moda b'shtar sheksavo, but he's not willing to be mekayim it, right? When he says, I wrote it, but he says, but I already paid it back, well then according to the Tanakama, he's going to be pater, right? According to Rabbi Yehuda, is going to be chayiv. And when we say that if it hasn't paid back, it means that if Reuven says, I wrote it, and I also have not yet paid it back, well then it's valid, and everyone agrees that you're going to be chayiv if the Malva takes that out to Rosh Hashanah on Shabbos. Okay? Rava Amar. Rava now says, D'chuli alma moda b'shtar sheksavo tzarich l'kaimo. So now according to Rava, everyone agrees actually, both the Tanakama and Rabbi Yehuda agree, that moda b'shtar sheksavo tzarich l'kaimo. No, if Reuven admits that he wrote this document, well guess what? He's also going to have to admit that it's still valid, that it still needs to be paid. If he says, I already paid it, well, then, a pesha also or a pesha hitir, just like we trust him to say that he wrote it, well, we also have to trust him to say that he already paid it back. and we're going to have to validate it through a third party, and it's not, and this document has no validity. So in the interim, at least, until we prove that it's valid. So now, what is the machlokes between Tanna Kama and Rabbi Yehuda? In what case does Rabbi Yehuda say that it's a valid document? So, v'hacha b'kosvin shover k'miflagi. Okay. Here, the machlokes is about, do you write a receipt? What is this talking about? So, again, Ruvain borrowed $100 from Shimon. Great. Ruvain wrote a document saying, I owe Shimon $100. Also great. Ruvain gets some money, and he wants to now pay back Shimon his $100. So, goes to Shimon with a $100 bill, gives it to Shimon, and then he says, hey Shimon, now can I have back my document that I wrote you? So that there's no misunderstandings here, I'll just take it and I'll tear it up, right? But Shimon lost the shtar. Shimon lost the document. So now, okay, Ruvain still wants to pay back Shimon, so he pays back Shimon. But Shimon doesn't know where the document is. So what do? So there's two options. One option is, well, Shimon can just write a receipt. I received the $100 that Ruvain owed me, gives it to Ruvain. Ruvain has a receipt, and therefore, Ruvain knows that there's no issue of Shimon ever coming and claiming that he owes the money anymore because he has a receipt that Shimon wrote him. However, the other argument would be to say that no, that's now a headache for Ruvain. Ruvain now has to hold on to this receipt forever. What if some mice come and eat up the receipt? Like, now it's Ruvain's headache. Shimon misplaced the shtar, and now Ruvain has to forever hold on to a piece of paper that says that, he paid back Shimon. So that's the machlokas. So v'hacha b'kosvin shover kamifli. So here it's talking about when Shimon misplaces the shtar, so he can't give it back to Ruvain when he gets paid back. So does Shimon write a receipt and give that to Ruvain, to say that he received the money? So Tanna Kama savar kosvin shover. So Tanna Kama says that you would write a shover, you would write a receipt. Rabbi Yehuda savar ein kosvin shover, whereas Rabbi Yehuda says that you don't write a receipt. And therefore, so what are we talking about? So we're talking about, again, where Shimon lost the receipt, and now it's Shabbos, and Shimon looks around and he says, oh gosh, there's the receipt. Holy smokes. Not the receipt. There's the document, right? There's the document. So the question is, can Shimon now say, oh gosh, I found this document, let me go and give it back to Ruvain, right? Because, he has no need for it. Let me give it back to Ruvain. So he wants to carry it in Rosh Hashanah to give it back to Ruvain. So now in this case, since the Chachamim said that Shimon would have already written Ruvain a receipt that he received the money, so this, ultimately at the end of the day, this document is pointless. He can't collect any money with it because he already wrote a receipt to Ruvain that he received the money. So you can't really collect money with this shtar anymore. And Ruvain doesn't want the shtar right now because, what's he going to do with it? He's it's asher lashos shtar parua. So there's really nothing to do with this, shtar right now. So if Shimon goes out to Rosh Hashanah with it, he's going to be pater because it's pointless. It's not chashuv. However, according to Rabbi Yehuda, who says that Shimon would not have written a receipt and given it to Ruvain, well, in that case, Ruvain really does want this shtar back so that he knows that it can never be used against him to double dip from him, right? So in that case, this shtar really does have significance in that we're going to want to just close this story by having Shimon return the shtar to Ruvain, and now we don't have to worry about anybody collecting money from anybody anymore. Everything's been paid back. Shtars have been given back. Everything is that. However, it's Shabbos, so we don't want you to take it back to Ruvain right now because you're going to carry it in Rosh Hashanah. And, since there is significance in Shimon returning this document to Ruvain, since Ruvain doesn't have a receipt or anything like that, so the document is significant, and therefore if Shimon, the malveh, the lender, takes it out to Rosh Hashanah on Shabbos, he will be chayiv. Fine. Now, finally, Rav Ashi Amar, says Rav Ashi, and in this time it's actually talking about Ruvain taking out the shtar, Okay, and it's talking about mipnei shetzarich la'ar'oso leval chov sheni de'amar le chad chazi gavra depara ana. So this is actually talking about where, again, Reuven borrowed $100 from Shimon. Okay, Reuven wrote Shimon a shtar saying that he owes him $100. Reuven then paid back the shtar. Reuven paid back the loan. Shimon gave back the shtar to Reuven, okay, because Shimon doesn't need it anymore. He's already been paid back. Now Reuven, instead of tearing it up, he filed it away for later so that the next time he wants to get a loan, he could show somebody, look, you see, I'm good for my word. Look, here's a document that shows that I had borrowed money from Shimon and paid it back, and you see he's giving me back the document. So it had significance because he wants it for his records in the future to prove that he's a credible person. So this document has significance, even though it's already been paid back. According to Rabbi Yehuda, it has significance, and therefore will be chayav for taking it out to Rishus Harabim. Alright, that was really like the more complicated, more complex part of the page. I hope everybody got that. Now we're moving on to just some more sizes of stuff. So hope you're all excited for sizes of stuff. Alright, so the Mishnah said, or kedei lasos chule, right? That the shear for taking out a hide on Shabbos is enough to make an amulet. So Bamine Rava Rav Nachman. So Rava asked a kasha from Rav Nachman Amotzi or Rechama. What is the amount of hide that you would take out and be chayav for? So Amrle Kiditznan. So Rav Nachman said to Rava, well, it's like our Mishnah says, or kedei lasos kamiyah. So enough hide to make an amulet. Hama abdo b'chama. Okay, so Rava says, now, if somebody were to tan a hide, to process a hide, how much would he have to tan in order to be chayav? Amalei lo shna says the same shear, enough to make an amulet. Okay. Li abdo b'chama. What if he wants to take out a hide that has not yet been tanned? He's going to tan it, but he hasn't yet tanned it. How much would he have to take out in order to be chayiv? Amalei lo shna. And again, Rav Nachman said there's no difference, the size of an amulet. Uminat temra. So Rava says, how do you know that there are no differences in all these shiurim? So Rav Nachman said, Kiditnan, as we learn in the Mishnah, Malabin, somebody who bleaches, Vabanapit, somebody who separates the threads of the, I think, warp. Vatsovea, somebody, this is talking about wool, right? And somebody who dyes wool, somebody who bleaches wool, somebody separates the wool on the loom. Vatove, and somebody who spins the wool. Shiuro kimlo rochav asid kafu. So the shiur that you would have, that you'd be chayiv for these things is, so kimlo rochav asit. Asit is the distance between your forefinger, like your pointer finger, and your middle finger. So kaful, two of those. Va'oreg shnei chutin, and somebody who weaves two threads, shiur kimlo rochav asit, then its size would just be, a thread the size of this measure between your forefinger and your pointer finger and your middle finger. Okay. Nu. So alma kevan de l'tvia kai shiura kitavui. So we see that in this Mishnah, so we're saying that, let's say, bleaching this wool is the same shear as, for spinning wool. So, i.e., spun wool is this, it's all the same shear. So, hachinami here also came to the abdo kai shiur kimu'ubad. So since he's going to tan this hide, it's the same thing as hide that's been tanned. V'shelo la'abdo b'chama. And what if he's not planning on tanning this hide? So then what's the shear? Amalei lo shna. He says that there's no difference. When it comes to hide, it's all going to be the same. It's all going to be this amulet size. V'lo shna ben mu'ubad l'sheinu mu'ubad. 1 second. Is everything really the same shear? Is there really no nafkamina between when the hide has not yet been tanned and when it has been tanned? Eisvei, we have a kasha. Hamotzi samanin shruyin, so kadei letzboa ben dugma le'ira. So if somebody takes out on Shabbos these herbs that you would soak in order to make dye, right? So if the herbs were already soaked and they're already made into dyes, right? And you can use them for dyes now. So how much would you have to take out on Shabbos and be chayiv? So just enough that you can dye this sort of sample that you would put on the bobbin of the, right, a weaver's bobbin, right, Keilu, right, in the weft. So they would throw the thread kind of between the warp threads, and there would be sort of all this thread that was tied up in a bobbin. It's like when the thread comes on that thing that it's all wrapped around. So that's the bobbin. So, and then they would kind of connect the thread to the bobbin with like some little cloth. So once these herbs have been made into dye, so then once you take out this small amount of dye, just enough to dye this little cloth that you use to connect the thread to the bobbin, so then you will be chayiv. However, v'ilu b'samanin she'enan shruyin, but when it comes to these herbs that have not yet been soaked and made into dye, well, tanan klipei agozim uklipei rimonim, when it comes to shells of nuts and shells of pomegranates, sitim, ufua, safflower, and madder, I don't know what these things are, but but they are used for making dyes. So, kidei litzboa ben beged katan lefi svacha. So you'd have to take out enough in order to dye, in order to color a small garment for like a hat or something, which is a larger amount. So we'd see that there are different shiurim based on if these herbs have been processed, if they've been made into dye, or if they haven't yet been made into dye. So we want to, so the argument being that shouldn't it be the same for hides, that there should be a difference in the shear before it's been tanned versus after it's been tanned. So the Gemara says, yeah, but that's not a good proof, because ha'itmar Allah, it's stated about those dyes, Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rabba bar Avua, lefi she'ein adam toreach lashro samanin litzboa ba and dugma le'ira, right? Because there's a difference when these herbs have been made into dyes versus when they have not yet been made into dyes, because when these herbs have not yet been made into dyes, nobody's like preparing dye to just make a tiny little sample cloth to connect to a weaver's bobbin. Okay? If you're making dye already, you're going to make a lot of dye. And that's why when these herbs have not yet been made into dye, the required shear in order to be chayav is going to be larger, because you're only going to make dye in larger batches. But once it's already been made into dye, well, then it's significant by a much smaller amount, which is just enough that you can dye this little sample of cloth. However, when it comes to hides, it really doesn't matter. People are going to be just as happy to tan a hide the size of a kamea, just as much as they would be happy, I guess, to work with a hide that's already been tanned. Meaning it's just as relevant, the size of a kamea is just as practical before it's been tanned versus after it's been tanned. V'harei zerone gina, but what about seeds that you would plant in a garden? The mikami dizarinu, that before you planted them, Tanan, it said, we learned in a Mishnah, zerone gina pachos michigrogeres, that the amount of seeds you'd be liable for taking out on Shabbos would be slightly less than a dried fig's worth. Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira omer chamisha. Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira says 5 seeds, okay, which I think the art school said was a little bit less than the amount that would be slightly less than a dried fig. Ve'ilu basu dezer inu tanan, but after you have planted them, we learn in a Mishnah, zevel v'chol hadak, that fertilizer and thin sand, kidei lizabel bo kelach shel kruv, divrei Rabbi Akiva, just enough in order to fertilize 1 stalk of cabbage. Rabbi Akiva omer, divrei Rabbi Akiva, v'chacham omer kidei lizabel krisha, enough to apply this fertilizer to 1 leek. The point being that before they've been planted, the shear was larger than after it's been planted, where each individual seed is significant. So again, we have a situation where there are different amounts based on if it's before the processing, which in this case is planting, or afterwards. So shouldn't that imply that by the hides there should be a different shear depending on pre-tanning versus post-tanning? So again, the Gemara says, ha'itmar Allah, but we stated about it, Amar Rav Papa, ha'dazriya, ha'delozriya. Rav Papa says it depends if the seeds have been planted yet or not. Lefi she'ein adam toreach lahotzi nima achas lezriya. Because nobody is going to plant just 1 seed. That's not practical. So you only chayiv when you take out enough seeds that it would be relevant, practical to actually plant them. But once they've been planted, well then each seed, each little plant is significant in its own right. However, again, back to hide, it's really, the size of a kamea is just as significant pre-tanning and post-tanning. So it's not a good, there's no equivalence there. Third attempt, Varitit, what about clay? Demikame deligable, that before it's been kneaded into clay, Tanya, we learned yesterday, Modim Chachamim Reb Shimon b'mosi shofchin u'shesarabim sheshiuran pervius, that the Chachamim, who said that the shear of water is just enough to make into an ointment and put on an eye patch, which is a very little bit, but they agree with Reb Shimon that when it comes to putrid waters, the shear would be a revius. And we asked shofchin l'may chazu, what are putrid waters good for? So Vam Rabbi Yirmiyah ligabo b'nesatid, and Rabbi Yirmiyah said, you know what putrid waters are good for? For making clay. And we're saying that basically before the clay has been formed, before this water has been added to create the clay, you would need a revius of water, i.e. enough water to make a significant amount of clay. Ve'ilu basar de gavle tanya, but after the water has been added and been made into clay, i.e. once we're talking about processed clay, well, tit kedei lasos ben pikor. We said that all you need is enough of this clay to cover the opening, to apply to the opening of a furnace. So again, we see that before the clay has been processed, the shear is different. It's larger. You require a vias of water to make a lot of clay. It's larger than after it's been processed when, at that point, even a smaller amount, just enough to apply to the opening of the furnace would be enough to make you chayiv. So again, by the hides, there should be a different shear for before processing and after processing. So Hasam Nami Kedamarin Fishain Adam Toreach Legabla Satid Lasos Bo Pikor. But again, over there by the clay, it's not comparable because nobody is going to just bring out enough materials to create such a small amount to just apply to the opening of a furnace, right? It's only relevant when you bring out enough material to make a lot of clay. Whereas over here, by the hides, the size of an amulet is significant, both pre-tanning and post-tanning. So that's why the shear is going to be the same. Tashma, come in here. Damar Abchia bar Ami mishmei deula shlosha oros hen. Okay, there are three types of hides. Matzah, one of the hides is called matzah. V'chipa, v'diftera. Those are the three types of hides. Matzah, chipa, and diftera. Matzah, kimashmo. What does matzah hide refer to? Well, what do you think matzah hide refers to? Just about as plain as you can get. Dilo maliach, it's not salted. Dilo kamiach, and there's no flour solution. It didn't sit in any flour solution. Udilo afitz, and there was no gall nut. I don't know what gall nuts are. Anybody know? I don't know. I probably could just Google it. Yeah, that would be a good idea. I should probably just Google it. I feel like Google would know. And there was no gall nut extract added to the skin, to the hide. That's what matzah is. V'cham shiuro. What would be the shear that you would be chayiv for taking out matzah hide on Shabbos? So I wonder, is it shmura matzah hide? Sorry. Tani Rav Shmuel bar Rav Yehuda kidei latzer bo mashkoles ketana. Okay. So Rav Shmuel bar Yehuda said that the shear that you would be chayiv for taking out matzah hide is enough that you would put a small weight in it. Okay. That they used to use weights in the markets, and the weights were made out of lead, and in order to make sure that they didn't lose their shape and subsequently their weight, they would wrap them in hides. So v'chama, and how large is this hide? So Amar Abaye, Riva de Riva de Pumpadisa, it's 1/4 of a litra of Pumpadisa. Okay, fine. Chayfa, what exactly is this Chayfa hide? De Maliach, well, in this case it is salted, however, velo kameach velo afitz, but it wasn't in a flour solution and there was no gallnut extract applied to it. V'cham shi'uro, so now this is already interesting. What is its shi'ur for this chipa hide? Keditnan, as we learned in the Mishnah, or kedei lasos kmeya. Enough hide to make an amulet. So we see already that, based on how far along in its processing, there's actually going to be different sizes. They're actually getting smaller in size, okay? Now, diftera is another step closer to being processed. Dimaliach, it's salted, v'kamiach, and it's been in a flour solution, v'lo afitz. However, there has not been any gallnut extract applied to it. V'chama shiuro, and what is its amount that you be chayav for? K'dei lichtov alav es haget, just large enough to write a get, okay? A divorce document. Now, a divorce document being, a minimal amount, just basically write so-and-so is getting divorced from so-and-so in such and such a city, right? That's like the minimum amount that you need, and that's the smallest size. So we see that actually this matzah hide, i.e. this hide that has not been tanned at all, has the largest shear, and then as you go along the process of tanning, the shear gets smaller. So, okay, this already seems to be evidence that there are different shiurim based on if it's tanned, if it's not tanned, how tanned it is. So, katani mias, so what do we see over there? Kidei lotzerbo mashkolas katana. That we said that hides that are not tanned would be the size of mashkolas katana, which is larger, right? And now va'amar abai riva de pumpadisa, that it's riva de pumpadisa, this quarter of a liter of pumpadisa, which is larger than the amulet size. So Gemara answers Hasan bibishula. No, there it's talking about when it's larger than the amulet size. It's talking about hides that are very moist. They're very fresh. They're very moist. They're not really ready to tan. Okay, our Mishnah is talking about hides that are able to be tanned, and that is going to be the size of an amulet. Okay, fine. But one second, we have a different Mishnah. Beged shlosha al shlosha. So we said that when it comes to tumas midras, so a garment needs to be 3 tefachim by 3 tefachim. Beged shlosha al shlosha lemidras. Hasak arba al arba. Sackcloth would have to be 4 tefachim by 4 tefachim. Haor chamisha al chamisha. Hide is going to be 5 tefachim by 5 tefachim. That's much larger than an amulet. Right? As Adam Friedman, I believe, showed us an amulet the other day. It was not that big. Mapatz shisha al shisha. And a, what did we say a mapatz was? Oh, it was like a thing made out of reeds. So that needs to be 6 tefachim by 6 tefachim. Bein the midras, bein the mace, and this is whether it's for a zav sitting on it or whether it's for a mace touching it. V'tani Allah, and we taught about it. Habeged v'asak v'aor, that fabric and sackcloth and hides, kashir l'tuma, kashir l'otzah, that it's the same shiur for both tuma and for otzah, i.e. that the shiur for otzah of a hide is going to be 3 tefachim by 3 tefachim, not enough for an amulet, which is much less than that. So, what do we do about that? Hahu bekur tovla. No, that also is not really relevant because this 5 tefachim by 5 tefachim for the hide, I don't know if I said 3 tefachim by 3 tefachim. I meant 5 tefachim by 5 tefachim for hides. So that would be only if it's kortovla. That is hide that has been like boiled and processed and it's hard already. It's not, it's a different kind of hide than the hides that we're talking about in the context of tanning. Those would all be the size of a amulet. Okay. Moving on. So at the top of Ayin Tesamud Beis, so klaf k'dei lichtov alav parsha ketana. So the Mishnah had said that you'll be chayiv for taking out parchment on Shabbos if it's large enough that you can write the first paragraph of Kriyas Shema, right, which is the smallest parsha of the tefillin. V'raminu. One second, we have a kasha. Klaf, okay, parchment. V'duchsustrus. Okay, duchsustrus. I don't know much about making klaf. But apparently hide, there's like different layers of the hide. So you take off the skin from the cow, and then there's the top layer, which is what they would use for the klaf. And then there was the layer beneath that, which is what's called duchsustrus. Okay? So, klaf v'duchsustrus. Okay? Kidei lichtov alav mezuzah. In order to write on it a mezuzah. Now, in a mezuzah, you have the first 2 paragraphs of Kriyas Shema. So, on the one hand, our Mishnah said that klaf you'll be chayiv if you take out a klaf large enough to write the first part, just the first paragraph of Shema. Yet we seem to, which is the smallest parsha in the tefillin. Now, because the tefillin, of course, are made up of 4 parshas, right? Shema, Vayam Shemoah, Kadesh, Vayakiviacha. So the smallest parsha would be the one containing just the first paragraph of Shema. Now, we have this brisa which says that both klaf and duchsustrus kedei lichtov alav mezuzah, in order to write a mezuzah on it. Now, a mezuzah is going to have the first 2 parshios of Shema and Vayam Shemoah. So it's pshat. So my mezuzah shebetfillin. So the Gemara wants to say, what mezuzah means in this brisa? When it says that you chayiv take out a klaf that is large enough to write mezuzah, doesn't mean the first 2 parshas of Kriyas Shema. It means mezuzah shebetfillin, a scroll that's in the tefillin. So they want to argue that mezuzah means a scroll. So the smallest scroll in the tefillin would be the first parsha of Kriyas Shema. So it's the same thing as the Mishnah. The tefillin mezuzah? One second. Really? Are you really going to call tefillin mezuzah? we actually will call tefillin mezuzah. V'atanya, as we learned in a brisa, ritzuos tefillin ima tefillin, right? So as we learned earlier in the Masechta, that there was a gezerah that svarim are tameh, right? There was a gezerah that people they because out of the concern of keeping Sifrei Torah and Sifrei Kodesh holy, they would stash it away with like truma, which is also holy. But then what would happen is that the mice and stuff would come to eat the truma, and they would also eat the Sifrei Kodesh. So they made a gezerah that Sifrei Kodesh are metamei hayadayim. They make your hands tamei so that you won't handle them with truma and put them in the same place. So we're saying ritzuos tefillin ima tefillin, that just like the tefillin would be tameh because of the Torah writing that's in there. So also the straps of the tefillin would also be tameh. If you touch the straps of your tefillin, then your hands will become tameh. Metamas hayadayim. Bifnei atzman ein metamas hayadayim. However, if you only have the straps that are not connected to the boxes of tefillin, so then they will not be metame your yadayim. Okay? Reb Shimon ben Yehuda Omer, Mishum Reb Shimon, Hanogea Baritzua Tar Achiyiga Biktzitza. So Reb Shimon ben Yehuda says in the name of Reb Shimon that, no, even if somebody who touches the straps that are attached to the boxes, nonetheless your hands will be tahor ad sheyiga biktzitza until you actually touch the boxes. Once you touch the boxes, so then the tefillin, then your hands will become tameh. Rabbi Zakkai Mishmo Omer, now Rabbi Zakkai says in the name of Reb Shimon, Tar ad sheyiga b'mezuzah atzma, there you go, that your hands are tar until you actually touch the parchment, till you actually touch the cloth that the mezuzah, that the writing of the tefillin are written on. So there you go. So we see that in this brisa, they're referring to mezuzah, not as the mezuzah you put on your doorpost, but the one of the parchments that are in the tefillin. So what do we see? So we see that mezuzah can actually refer to tefillin, and therefore we want to argue that this brisa that says that you'll be chayiv for taking out klaf and duchsosteros, when as long as it's enough to write mezuzah, it means enough to write the smallest parsha of tefillin, which is Shema, which is exactly what our Mishnah says. But the Gemara is not satisfied. But one second, the seifa of that brisa says that when it comes to klaf, you're actually chayav for when you write the smallest parsha of tefillin. So 1 second, that brisa doesn't seem to have any issue distinguishing between tefillin and mezuzah. And therefore, we can assume that when it says tefillin, it means tefillin. When it says mezuzah, it means mezuzah. So what's pshat? Because also on the one hand, we said at the beginning that both klaf and duchsostros, you're going to be chayav when you write mezuzah. And we want to say that mezuzah now means an actual mezuzah. And yet, the seifa of the brisa is saying that for klaf, you're only chayav when you write the first parsha of Shema. Like, didn't we just say that for klaf and duchsostros, it's going to be for tefillin, for mezuzah? Like what's going on? So we're going to clarify everything. So the answer is, right, so again, the Katani Seifa, when the Seifa says klaf, k'dei lichtov ala parsha katana shebetfilin shehi Shema Yisrael, which is Shema Yisrael mechlal de reisha b'mezuzah atzma askinon, which means that the reisha is talking about an actual mezuzah, and the Seifa is talking about an actual klaf, is talking about an actual tefillin. So what's going on? Elahachi katani, this is how to understand this brisa. Klaf v'duchsostros shi'uran v'kama. What are the amounts that you'll be chayiv for taking out klaf and duchsostros on Shabbos, respectively? So duchsostros, kidei lichtov olav mezuzah. So duchsostros, you'll be chayiv if it's large enough to write a mezuzah on it. Klaf, kidei lichtov olav parsha katana shebetfilin shishma Yisrael. Whereas klaf, you'll be chayiv if it's large enough to write the first parsha in tefillin, which is Shema Yisrael. The smallest parsha in tefillin, which is Shema Yisrael. Fine. So we see that, okay, so this brisa agrees with our Mishnah that klaf, you'll be chayiv if you take out klaf enough to write the first parsha of Shema. Weiter. Amar Rav. Okay, so now we're going to be basically for the rest of the daf trying to understand the opinion of Rav, okay? Amar Rav. Duchsostros arehi keklaf. Interesting. So Rav says that duchsostros, I'm sure for many people this is the first time you're hearing duchsostros. Well, first time I may be hearing, well, it's definitely not the first time I'm hearing duchsostros because I've learned Shabbos before, but definitely not familiar with it. Definitely klaf definitely rings a much bigger bell than duchsostros does. Anyways, so said Rav that duchsostros arei keklaf. That duchsostros is just like klaf. Maklaf kos van olav tefillin. Just like on klaf you can write tefillin. So av duchsostros kos van olav tefillin. So you can also write tefillin on duchsostros, which is this lower part of the cow skin that you can make into some kind of a parchment. Okay, that's Rav's opinion. That you can write tefillin, so you can write tefillin on both klaf and duchsostros. Fine. Now, Tanan, we have a Mishnah that says, klaf kedei lichtov parsha ketana shebetefillin shishma Yisrael. 1 second. Our Mishnah says that you're going to be chayav on Shabbos for taking out klaf if it's large enough that you can write the first parsha of Shema. Okay? Now, klaf in, duchsostros lo. Now 1 second. Right? Meaning, we said that klaf, you'll be chayav if you take out the klaf large enough that you can write the smallest parsha in tefillin, which is the first parsha of Shema. Now it sounds like we're specifically saying klaf is that size. However, duchsostros would not have to be that size. We're more lenient. It would be a larger size. It would be the size for mezuzah, which has 2 parshios written on it, which makes it larger, which is less stringent because you have more leeway. Now, if what Rav is saying is correct, that you can write tefillin on duchsostros, well then shouldn't duchsostros have the same halacha of tefillin, which is that if you have a piece of duchsostros large enough to write just the first parsha of Shema, you should be chayav for that as well? So the Gemara answers, limitzvah. So the Gemara answers what our Mishnah is saying when it says specifically klaf would be the size of the smallest parsha in tefillin. It's talking about limitzvah. Really, ideally, you should not be writing tefillin on duchsostros. Ideally, you should be writing tefillin on klaf. And as Rashi points out, right, v'stama d'chol, Rashi dibar maschil limitzvah, it says v'stama d'chol inish mitzvah ma'al yisa'avid. Now, in general, people do mitzvahs as best as they can. And therefore, people are going to be writing their tefillin on klaf, okay? And that basically makes the sostros for tefillin something that people don't do, and it makes it ein matzniin kamohu. It would be considered something that people don't necessarily put away. You wouldn't put away the sostros for tefillin, and therefore you wouldn't be chayav for taking it out on Shabbos, at least at the shear of just the size of Shema. You would only be chayav once it's large enough to write both Shema and Vayam Shema, like on a mezuzah. Tashma, Kamanir, halacha l'Moshe miSinai, that we have halacha l'Moshe miSinai, halacha from Moshe at Mount Sinai, that tefillin al aklaf u'mezuzah al duchsostros. That tefillin is written on klaf, mezuzahs are written on duchsostros. Well, that seems pretty clear. So, and then the halacha Moshe miSinai continues, klaf b'makom basar. Now, klaf, when you write on klaf, which is the upper most part of the skin, so you write on the makom abasar, meaning the side of the klaf that was facing the flesh of the animal, right? Obviously, one side of the hide was the hair side, and the other side of the hide was the flesh side. So when it comes to klaf, you write on the flesh side, duchsostros makom se'ar, duchsostros, you would write on the side of the duchsostros that was towards the hair. Okay, fine. But what do we see in that halacha Moshe miSinai? That tefillin are written on klaf and mezuzahs are written on duchsostros. Why is Rashi saying that tefillin can also, I don't know what I just said, but tefillin is klaf, mezuzah is duchsostros. Why is Rav saying that tefillin can also be written on duchsostros? So the mitzvah, the Gemara gives the same exact answer. Again, ideally, tefillin should be written on klaf, mezuzah on duchsostros, but Rav is saying that you can write tefillin on duchsostros. V'atanya, but we have a brayso that says shina pasul. We have a brayso that says, but if you switch it, it's pasul. Mistama, that means that if you write tefillin on duchsostros or mezuzah on klaf, it would be pasul, no? On mezuzah. No, it's talking about the mezuzah. That if you write a mezuzah on klaf, it's a problem. But if you write tefillin on dochsostros, gesundheit. Ve'atan neshina bazeh uvazeh pasul. But 1 second, we have a brayso that says that if you, switched around either one, bazeh uvazeh, doesn't that mean that kilu, if you write mezuzah on klaf, or if you write tefillin on dochsostros, both of those would be problematic, and therefore it's a kasha for Rav? No, it's not. Idi v'idi on mezuzah. No, shina bazeh uvazeh is talking about mezuzah the entire time. What does it mean? It means that even if, when it comes to mezuzah, now mezuzah has to be written on dochsostra, we're assuming. And therefore, we're saying, and now dochsostra, as we said, according to the Halacha Moshe Sinai, is written on the side that's facing the hair. And what we're saying is that if you take klaf, and even if you write it as best as you can, kilu, you write it on the side of the hair, just like the Halacha Moshe Sinai says that dochsostros should be written on the side of the hair, right? And dochsostros is used for mezuzah. And you might think, okay, let me take this klaf, but I'll write it on the hair side. Maybe that'll work? No, it doesn't. And also, inami adochsostros b'makom basar, if you write mezuzah on dochsostros, but you write it on the flesh part, now it should be written on the hair part, but you write it on the flesh part, it's also going to be pasul. And that's what it means, shina bazeh uvazeh, it's pasul. It means that basically if you write the tefillin, if you write the mezuzah with klaf, even if it's on the hair side, it's not going to be okay. And if you write the mezuzah on dochsostros, but it's on the flesh side, when it should be on the hair side, it's going to be not acceptable. Okay. However, Rav would argue, or we can at least argue for Rav, that when it comes to tefillin, you would be able to write on either klaf or dochsostros. V'ba'isema, or if you want, I can give you a different answer. Shin bazeh uvazeh tanaihi, that this idea of, if you flip around, kilu, so we're going to understand shina bazeh uvazeh, meaning if you wrote tefillin on dochsostra or if you wrote mezuzah on klaf, so whether that's acceptable or not is actually machlokas tanaim. The Tanyas we learn in the brayso, shina bazeh uvazeh pasul. Okay, if you flip them around, pasul. Whereas Rabbi Acha machshir mishum Rabbi Achi bar Chanina va'amila mishum Rabbi Yaakov bar Chanina. Whereas Rabbi Acha says that it would be kosher. It would be no problem if you flip them around. And Rav holds like Rav Acha, right? So Rabbi Acha says that if you write tefillin on dochsostra, or if you're a mezuzah on klaf, it would be fine, and Rav holds like him. Rav Papa Amar, said Rav Papa, Rav de Amar Kitana Dvei Menashe. So Rav Papa says that Rav holds like the Tana Dvei Menashe. Rav who says that you can write tefillin on dochsostra, he holds like the Tana Dvei Menashe. The Tana Dvei Menashe, Kosva ala niyar balamatlis psula. If you write it, we don't know what it is, but if you write it on paper or on some kind of cloth, so then psula, it would be pasul. Ala klaf, vala gvil, vala duchsteros, kshera. However, if you write it on klaf or on gvil, which is like another kind of parchment, or on duchsostros, kshera, it's acceptable. Kasvamai. Now, what are we talking about? What we write? Ilema mezuzah. If we're going to say that we're talking about a mezuzah, and we're saying you can write it on klaf or gvil or dochsostros, mezuzah aklaf mikasvinan. Can you write mezuzah on klaf? No way. So elalav tefillin. It must be talking about tefillin, and we're saying that you can write tefillin on klaf as well as dochsostros, like Rav. That's what Rav Papa wants to argue. But the Gemara says, but according to you, Rav Papa, tefillin agvil mikasvinan. 1 second. That brayso had said that you can write whatever it is, you can write it on klaf and gvil and dochsostros. So we want to say that it's tefillin, but can you write tefillin on gvil? No way. Ela kitanya b'sefer Torah. That brayso is talking about sefer Torah. We're saying in sefer Torah you can write on klaf or gvil or dochsostros, but it's no proof for tefillin, and you can't prove anything from Rav, for Rav. Okay. Lema misayele. The Gemara wants to say maybe the following is a support for Rav. Kayotzebo. We say similarly. Tefillin shabalu v'sefer Torah shabala ein osimei mezuzah. That if you have tefillin that the parchments got worn out, or if you have a sefer Torah that the parchments got worn out, Ein osem mezuzah. You can't just cut out the part with Shema and Bayam Shemoah and put it into a mezuzah, right? So let's say you have part of your tefillin that got worn out. You can't say, well, Shema and Bayam Shemoah are still in good shape. Let me just make it into a mezuzah. Or let's say you have a Sefer Torah that got worn out. You can't say, oh, let me just grab the parshas of Shema and Bayam Shemoah and put it in a mezuzah. You can't do that. Because we don't go down from a more chamor kedusha to more mekil kedusha, which is interesting. I guess the implication being that Sefer Torah and tefillin are more chamor than mezuzah is. But for that reason, you can't take the parshas from Sefer Torah and mezuzah and put it, and Sefer Torah and tefillin and put it in mezuzah. Okay? Now the Gemara says, time of the moridin. The only reason why you can't take these parshas from Sefer Torah or from mezuzah, or from tefillin and put it in a mezuzah is because that would be going down in holiness. Let's say that wasn't a factor. It sounds like there would be no problem. Meaning, what about the fact that Mistamar you're writing tefillin and mezuzah on different materials? Isn't that a problem? Apparently not. So hamoridin osin, right? If it wasn't, if we would be allowed to go down from one level of kedusha to another, it sounds like there would be no other issues. So dichsiva amai. And now, what material are we talking about that the tefillin and the mezuzah were written on that you would theoretically be able to swap if not for the fact that it was going down in holiness? Lav dichsiva adochsostros? Is it not talking about where both the tefillin and the mezuzah were written on dochsostros and it's a proof for Rav that tefillin can be written on dochsostros? Lo. Dichsiva al aklaf. It's talking about where it's written on klaf. It's talking about where it's written on klaf. And we're saying that theoretically, both the tefillin and the mezuzah would be allowed to be written on klaf. Mezuzah klaf mikasvinan? But do we really write mezuzah on klaf? Yeah. Gemara says, no problem. But Tana, as we learn in the Brisa, kasva ala klaf ala nir vala madlis psula. So the Tanakama of this Brisa says that if you write a mezuzah on klaf, on paper, or on a matlis, on like a cloth, it's psula. Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, Rabbi Meir aya kosva ala klaf, mipnei shemishtameres. And Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar says that Rabbi Meir would write mezuzahs on klaf because it would preserve very well. So we seem to be saying that you actually can write mezuzah on klaf, right? So you can write tefillin on klaf, you can write mezuzah on klaf, and we can argue that brisa, if not for the fact that going from tefillin to mezuzah would be a step down, if not for that, you would be able to swap the tefillin which are in on klaf for mezuzah, which is written on klaf, no problem. And we don't have a proof for Rav who says that both tefillin and mezuzah could be written on dochsostros. Fine. But then the Gemara says, well, once already we have this brisa that we're saying is talking about that both tefillin and mezuzah could be written on klaf. Well, then the Rav Nami lo temu dochsostros areyu klaf. Don't say that dochsostros is like klaf. Rather, ela klaf areyu dochsostros. Rather say that klaf is like dochsostros. Ma dochsostros kos v'nal olav mezuzah. Av klaf kos v'nal olav mezuzah. That just like on dochsostros you can write a mezuzah, so also on klaf you can write a mezuzah. Okay, fine. So that's what and that's where the Gemara leaves off, kind of throwing in a quick one at the end to say that actually maybe we can flip around Rav's thing and saying that you can write tefillin and mezuzahs on klaf, and I think that's what we do lemaisa, right? Is that we write tefillin and mezuzahs on klaf, I think. Anyways, that was daf ayin tes of Masechta Shabbis. Not for the weak of heart, right? I don't know. Anyways. So let's do a little shtickle recap. I'm not going to go into all the details because this was a page that was chock full of details, but let's start with taking out a shtar that has already been paid. So we say that when a shtar has already been paid, so the Tanakama says that you're going to be pater for taking out, and Rabbi Yehuda says that you're going to be chai for taking it out because he still needs it. So the question is, what exactly is the machlokes? So we had 4 opinions. Rabbi Yosef says the machlokes is asur lishos shtar parua. Can you keep around in your house a shtar that has already been paid? Okay, the Chacham say no, you can't leave it around if it's already been paid, and therefore it's pointless, and you're going to be pater if you take it out because it's not chashuv. Whereas Rabbi Yehuda says you're allowed to keep around a shtar that's already been paid, and therefore it has significance, and to use it for whatever you're using it for, and you're going to be chayiv if you take it out. Abaye says modeh b'shtar sheksavo tzarich lekaimo. That's the machlokas. Abaye says that the machlokas between Tanakama and Rabbi Yehuda is that if the borrower who had written the shtar admits that he had written the shtar, but he also says that he already paid it back. So now what happens to the shtar, right? Do we need him to both admit that he wrote it and that he still needs to pay it back? But if he didn't, what happens when he denies it? So according to the Chachamim, once he denies it, it's basically worthless right now until we can get Eidim to vouch for its validity. And therefore, you're going to be pater if you take it out on Shabbos. According to Rabbi Yehuda, it says, no, the fact that he admitted that he wrote it is enough and it's valid, and therefore if you take it out on Shabbos, you're going to be chayiv. Rava says it's about if you write a receipt or not, right? What if Shimon, the lender, lost the shtar? Do you write Reuven a receipt? According to Chacham, you do write a receipt, and therefore there's really no reason why Shimon, the lender, would have to go return it to Reuven right now, because he really can't try and claim the money anymore, since he already wrote Reuven a receipt. I don't know if I just said to claim it from Shimon, but Shimon, the lender, won't be able to use this shtar anymore to claim the money from Reuven, since he already wrote a receipt for it. So therefore there's no reason to, basically the shtar is pointless right now. So if you take it on Shabbos, it'll be pater according to the Chacham. Whereas Rabbi Yehuda says that, well, actually you don't write a receipt, and therefore there is a reason to be getting this receipt back to Reuven. And if he takes it out on Rishus Harabim on Shabbos, will be chayiv. Rav Ashi had said that actually we're talking about the lender, Reuven. If he's going to hold on to it for his record so that he can show other people that he's trying to get a loan from that, look, I'm good for it. Here's all these other stars that have already been paid back. So therefore it's going to be, so that's why Rabbi Yehuda says it'll be chayiv, because he keeps them in his filing cabinet for reference. Then we got into all sorts of minimum sizes for hides, right? We had a dialogue between Rav and Rav Nachman, where Rav Nachman kept on saying that basically when it comes to hides, everything is going to be the size of a amulet. We then brought 3 brisas to try to prove that, that there are actually differences. We brought one proof from dyes, that there are differences in the amounts of dyes you have to take out before the herbs have been made into dye versus after they've been made into dye. Right? We also brought a question from seeds that you plant, that the amount is different before you planted them versus after you planted them. And the third one being when it comes to clay, that there's differences in the amount between before it's been mixed with water versus after it's been mixed with water. But in all of those situations, we explained that there is an actual qualitative difference before and after it's been planted, processed. Whereas when it comes to hides, there's really not much of a difference before it's been tanned afterwards or versus afterwards. The size of a amulet will be equally relevant. Okay, then we also tried to bring another proof from basically these different levels of tanning hides. And we said that basically before hide has been processed whatsoever, so the size is enough to wrap this weight, which is larger than the size of an amulet. We said that that's because it hasn't been processed at all. It's very moist. It's not ready to be tanned right now. Armstrong is talking about hides that can be tanned. And then finally, we brought a proof from saying that the size for otzah of a hide on Shabbos would be 5 tefachim by 5 tefachim, but there also we said it's talking about hide that's already been boiled and made into like a very sturdy type of hide, not relevant for tanning. Then we talked about materials for writing tefillin and mezuzahs. So the default is that you would write tefillin on cloth and you would write mezuzahs on duchsostras. Now, Rav had an interesting opinion, which was that actually when it comes to, at least initially his opinion was that when it comes to duchsostros, when it comes to, tefillin, you could write it either on cloth or duchsostros, right? So then we tried to bring all sorts of questions, proving that no, actually tefillin specifically has to be on cloth. It can't be written on duchsostros. We kept on saying that no, that's only lemitzvah. That's only like mitzvah min hamuvchars to write tefillin on cloth, but it can be nonetheless written on duchsostros. Then finally, we tried to bring a brisa at the end. We tried a few different things, few different proofs. At the end, we then tried to bring a brisa to prove that if you would want to basically swap a parsha from tefillin into mezuzah, you can't do it because it's going down from holiness. But if it wasn't going down from holiness, then it would sound like you would be able to swap them. We wanted to assume that that was talking about they were made both out of duchsostros. And it would be a proof for Rav, in which we said, no, actually they're both talking about where it was made out of cloth. And you can actually theoretically flip around the opinion of Rav and say that actually mezuzah can be written on both duchsostos as well as klaf, i.e. that klaf can be used for both tefillin and mezuzah. Alright, I hope you guys enjoyed that. Have a great day.